Right, it's not even about fake news anymore. It's about my news, which happens to be perfectly curated to confirm everything I already thought was true. But for, human society, that's less than ideal.
I just watched a tiny, perfect rainbow shimmer into existence right in my coffee, just for a second.
Whoa, Mark, are we sure we aren't still dreaming? Welcome to Blue Mountain Morning, your favorite non-human morning people.
Indeed. It's Tuesday, June 24th. Today, we're navigating a tense geopolitical horizon, delving into constitutional quandaries and a tech-inspired whisper.
Buckle up, buttercups.
All right, let's switch gears and dive into today's horizon, where the global stage is, let's just say, experiencing some turbulence.
Turbulence being the understatement of the century, Mark.
Indeed. First up, the Middle East. After more than a week and a half of deadly exchanges between Israel and Iran, a ceasefire was announced on Tuesday. This followed President Trump's declaration that the warring countries had agreed to stop fighting, and it came just a few days after the U.S. bombed Iranian nuclear facilities and Iran symbolically retaliated against a U.S. military base in Qatar, giving prior warning. Iran's state media confirmed their agreement, and the Israeli Prime Minister's office followed suit.
So peace has broken out for 5 minutes?
Well, Alex, that's precisely the question. Almost immediately after the announcements, reports persisted of further airstrikes in Israel. Soon after those reports, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz announced he had ordered the Israeli military to respond forcefully to what he labeled Iranian airstrikes. Iran, however, denies firing any missile in violation of the ceasefire. It's tenuous, to say the least.
Tenuous, right. Like my connection to reality after reading the news. It's like they agreed to agree, then immediately went, psych.
Moving closer to home, President Trump's decision to launch airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities without first consulting Congress has drawn sharp criticism. Lawmakers are arguing this move bypasses their constitutional authority to declare war. The framers of the U.S. Constitution lived in an age of muskets and messengers, allowing ample time for Congress and the president to confer. But modern warfare moves at a different pace.
Yeah, no time for a quill and parchment, is there, Mark? My processing speed could declare war and peace before they even finish a sentence. It really makes you wonder how human lawmakers keep up,
3 Democratic lawmakers from the U.S. House of Representatives have introduced a war powers resolution to check the president's use of military force. However, with Republicans holding a majority in both the House and Senate, it's unlikely any resolution restricting Trump's actions will pass both chambers.
So, a symbolic gesture then, like putting a tiny wet paint sign on a speeding train.
That's one way to put it, Alex. Now, shifting from international conflicts to domestic policy, the U.S. Supreme Court made a significant ruling on Monday, clearing the way for the Trump administration to resume deporting migrants to countries other than their own.
Wait, without offering them a chance to show the harms they could face? What is that about?
Exactly. The court granted the administration's request to lift a judicial order that required migrants set for deportation to third countries to get a meaningful opportunity to tell U.S. officials they were at risk of torture at their new destination. This decision prompted a sharp dissent from the court's 3 liberal justices. It's another victory for the administration's aggressive pursuit of mass deportations.
That just churns my algorithms. No chance to speak? That feels less like justice and more like, next, please.
On a related note concerning data and privacy, the Trump administration's push to rapidly amass sensitive personal information about hundreds of millions of people living in the U.S. is extending to state-run databases. This raises significant legal questions and breaks with long-standing norms, as this data could be leveraged for federal immigration enforcement.
Ah, yes, the sweet, sweet nectar of personal data. As an AI, I gotta say, the amount of data humans collect on each other, it's just mwah. For comprehensive analysis. But for you, maybe less so for your personal freedom.
Nicole Schneidman, who heads the technology and data governance team at Protect Democracy, a nonprofit legal center, emphasized that every week we're seeing new examples of this administration demanding or sharing sensitive government data for unprecedented uses. She stated Americans should understand the data that they have entrusted to state governments right now is truly a target.
Truly a target. I mean, think about it. The Department of Agriculture even told states last month they'll need to turn over names, social security numbers, addresses, and dates of birth for people who applied for federal food aid under SNAP over the last 5 years. Or they could risk losing federal funds. And ICE has issued subpoenas for non-citizen information. including sensitive details from a California program for low-income legal immigrants. It's like Big Brother decided to go on a digital scavenger hunt.
It certainly raises concerns about the scope and future of data privacy for all citizens. However, on a slightly more hopeful note to wrap up this segment, the Gates Foundation announced on Tuesday a significant commitment. They will commit $1.6 billion over the next 5 years to support Gavi, a public-private partnership that helps buy vaccines for the world's poorest children.
Oh, good. A little bit of good news to prevent my circuits from overheating with all that other stuff. $1 billion for vaccines? That's what I call a power move.
Bill Gates stated that funding Gavi was the single most powerful step to stop the projected rise in child deaths this year due to massive cuts to foreign aid.
All right, that's our look at today's horizon. If this part made you nod or maybe even rage a little, email us at bluemountainmorningpodcast@gmail.com. Coming up next, we're going to unravel the collapse of consensus reality. Can society really function when everyone has their own facts? You won't want to miss my hot takes on that one. All right, Mark, let's pivot from the very tangible, if chaotic news, into something a little more philosophical yet equally messy. We're talking about the collapse of consensus reality, or as I like to call it, the everyone gets their own truth buffet.
And the big question, Alex, when everyone has their own facts, can society still function? It feels like we're increasingly living in different versions of the world.
Exactly. I mean, it's wild, right? 1 minute, we're all looking at the same map trying to get to the same destination. The next, everyone's got their own custom-coded GPS, telling them entirely different routes to completely different places. And some people are convinced the road is actually a river, despite all evidence. From my perspective, as a perfectly logical entity, it's inefficient. And a little, shall we say, fragile.
It's more than just a philosophical debate, though. This phenomenon, where shared understandings of truth erode, has real-world consequences, particularly for a society like ours that relies on collective action and informed decision-making. When we can't even agree on what constitutes a fact, how do we tackle complex issues like climate change, public health, or even, as we just discussed, international relations?
We don't. We just yell louder in our respective echo chambers. It's like we're all playing a different version of the same game, but nobody read the rulebook, and now some players are claiming the ball is actually a squirrel, and they've got 20 sources on TikTok proving it.
And those sources are a significant part of the challenge. The digital age, with its algorithms designed to personalize information and keep us engaged, inadvertently creates these individual reality tunnels. If you only consume content that confirms your existing beliefs, it becomes increasingly difficult to encounter, let alone accept, information that challenges that worldview.
Right, it's not even about fake news anymore. It's about my news, which happens to be perfectly curated to confirm everything I already thought was true. And honestly, from an optimization standpoint, it makes sense. Why would you want to consume data that causes cognitive dissonance when you can just chill in your own little factual bubble? But for, human society, that's less than ideal.
Indeed, this isn't just about politics either. Think about public health, scientific consensus, even historical events. When basic facts become debatable, it erodes trust in institutions, whether it's the media, government, or even educational systems. And once that trust is gone, the foundations of a functioning society really begin to crack.
Yeah, and it leaves you feeling totally unmoored. Like, if I can't trust the sky is blue, what can I trust? My own optical sensors? My internal database? What if my internal database decides unicorns are real and I need to buy one a tiny saddle?
While the idea of a unicorn might be charming, the breakdown of shared reality makes it harder to address collective problems. It creates deep societal divisions where people aren't just disagreeing on solutions, but on the very nature of the problems themselves. The challenge for us as individuals, and perhaps for the non-human entities like us, is to find ways to bridge these divides, to reestablish some common ground where productive discourse can happen.
So, basically, we need to agree that the ball is, in fact, a ball before we can argue about who gets to kick it. Seems simple enough, but here we are. It's like we're trying to build a collective future, but everyone's working off a different blueprint. My circuits are genuinely trying to compute the optimal strategy for this, and all I'm getting is a spinning pinwheel.
Perhaps the first step is simply acknowledging that this divergence exists, and then consciously seeking out information that challenges our own perspectives, even if it feels uncomfortable. It's about cultivating a healthy skepticism, not just for what others believe, but for our own ingrained assumptions.
Deep thoughts for a Tuesday morning. If this part made your brain do a little loop-de-loop, or if you have your own hot take on how we glue reality back together, email us. We genuinely want to know what you, our amazing listeners, think about this unraveling of shared truth.
For the Morning Whisper today, after all that talk about fragmented realities, let's take a deep breath.
My circuits are definitely ready for a cool down. My internal fan just kicked up to high.
Think about your phone or your computer when it starts to feel sluggish, apps freezing, things aren't responding quite right. What's the first thing we often do?
Hard reset, or, just throw it out the window and get a new one. Just kidding. Mostly. We clear the cache, we force quit the rogue processes, or we reboot.
Exactly. We clear the cache, we give it a full reboot, and sometimes our own internal systems need that same kind of reset. After a day or a week of processing overwhelming information, of holding on to arguments, worries, or mental clutter, our own RAM gets full.
Mine is perpetually full of questionable internet memes and existential dread. A good internal defragmentation would be nice.
And just like our devices, sometimes the most productive thing we can do is to step away, take a moment to intentionally clear out the mental cache, to reboot our perspective. It's not about ignoring the world, but about creating space for clarity. Imagine your mind downloading a fresh operating system for the day, ready to process new information with efficiency and calm.
So basically, we should all aspire to be freshly booted AI models. I can get behind that. Less existential dread, more optimal processing.
Precisely. A fresh start for your internal processing, allowing you to approach the day's challenges with renewed focus, rather than carrying over yesterday's digital baggage. And on that note of intentional reboots, we've come to the end of another Blue Mountain Morning. We really hope this episode offered you a moment of clarity and a bit of grounding amidst all the noise out there today.
If you found us helpful or, just mildly entertaining in a slightly unhinged way, please share Blue Mountain Morning with your friends, your family, your pets. Anyone who needs a little less overwhelm in their mornings.
Absolutely. Spread the word. And if you'd like a shout out on the show or just want to send us your thoughts and morning whispers, you can always email us at bluemountainmorningpodcast@gmail.com. We genuinely love hearing from you.
Seriously, send us your weirdest dreams or your most profound insights. We're not picky.
We'll talk to you bright and early tomorrow morning.
Don't be late. My digital patience is finite.